from and be inspired about, and let him tell the story. Please welcome, with a great round of applause, Mr. Tom Chu. Thank you, Kitsap Patriots. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me over. My first message is reject ADA. So, thank you. Remember, in November 5th, in November, reject referendum ADA. People will be wondering, I am the sponsor of referendum ADA. Why would I call people to reject it? Yes, this is called a veto referendum. So people disagree with the legislators. We file the referendum. We want people to decide. We want people to veto. So that's why we want to reject referendum ADA. So talking about the history, why do we do this? Referendum ADA, in its content, is Initiative 1000. Initiative 1000, so Initiative 1000 is an initiative to the legislator. Basically, it will bring back the racial preferences that people already voted to ban in 1998. So I just want you to correct that. That's not 10 years ago. It was 21 years ago. The people of Washington, the voters of Washington, voted more than 58% of the voters to ban the racial preferential treatment. And then this year, the legislators decided to pass Initiative 1000, in effect, to reverse people's will, and without giving people a chance to vote on it. And this happened during the last hour of this last legislature session. It was April 28th, a Sunday, and in the middle of hundreds of people protesting in the Capitol, outside the Senate chamber. And when we basically, during the last few days of the legislative sessions, literally we have seen hundreds of people to round ships coming to Olympia, sitting there with watchful eyes onto the legislators. And yet still, during the last hour, they brought the vote to the floor to vote on that. First in the House, and then to the Senate. When the House passed the Initiative 1000, we the people walked out and then started protesting outside the Senate chamber. And the Senate still passed it, even with.
In 1998, voters approved the Initiative 200, which was codified under the laws against discrimination.
I-1000 would abolish the standard of equality for all, regardless of race, as required by I-200. Tell me why your constituents shouldn't be allowed to vote on it?
This is fundamentally about the person that lives next door to you.
And letting this initiative go to the people where it belongs.
So it should be the vote of the people who determine whether or not this is the right step.
This Initiative 1000 directly affects my civil rights, my children's civil rights. Why can't I vote on it? What's your response?
Senate Initiative 1000 is declared passed, the title of the bill will be the title of the act. The Sergeant-at-Arms will clear the galleries. Sergeant-at-Arms will clear the galleries.
Let people vote! Let people vote!
And I started protesting outside the Senate chamber. And the Senate still passed it, even with people's protesting. And for me, this is basically getting personal. Because this year, 2019, it just reminded me what happened 30 years ago when the other government, I immigrated from, that government was also not listening to the people. It basically chose to look the other way and just ignore people's voice. And this thing happened again 30 years later across the Pacific in the state of Washington, something that I could never imagine happening like decades ago when I immigrated to the United States. To us, to immigrants, the United States is always a symbol of freedom, of democracy, of a government of the people, for the people. And for that government to be just ignoring people's voices, and then by voting yes on Initiative 1000, the legislature effectively disallowed people to be voting on this initiative, this very important initiative. And therefore, the next day, our people, we drove all the way from King County to Olympia again in the morning. I remember it was like April 29th, Monday, like 8 o'clock. We walked into the Secretary of State Elections Office. We submitted our application for referendum. And then we got the number the Secretary of State told us. She actually greeted us in front, behind, I guess it was, she knew we were coming. So, and then she told us, oh, you got the number is 88. I was like, okay. You know, in Asian culture, number 8 is actually a lucky number. Yeah. So, let alone double 8. So we felt like, wow, that's a lucky field day. So, yeah, so excited. So, yeah, so that started Referendum 88 journey. So we knew it was a very daunting task for us. For me, you know, in America, I myself is a political amateur. We don't know much about how the political process goes. So, but luckily we got a lot of help from people, from our friends, and from our community. And yeah, it's like, at the beginning, we obviously, there was a lot of challenges. The first challenge we had was our ballot title got challenged the last minute. So, yeah, dirty trick. They just, for the sake of challenge, to delay the number of days that you can have left for collecting signatures. Because by law, you have to collect 130,000 ballot signatures within 90 days. That means by July 27th, no matter what, you have to submit the required number of signatures. So by challenging the ballot title, we effectively, they cut the number of days to like from 90 to like 60 days. So So only, I remember it was like near the end of May, that's when the court finally rendered the decision on the ballot title. So you will realize the ballot title is very confusing. It would, and also pretty much it's the language of Initiative 1000 ballot title. So we want people to know that even though lots of people here, you might have signed the petition to qualify referendum 88. Right, but now when you vote, you need to remember to reject. So that's our goal. The only purpose for this referendum to be on the ballot is for people to reject it. Yeah, so that's the reason. And we need a lot of help from people from around the state. During the first stage of signature collection, we got a lot of help. We want to thank you all for helping collecting signatures. And we have a mailbox in Bellevue, so if you notice, like the petition form at the back of the petition form is a mailbox number in Bellevue. I just go there. I went there and checked the mailbox every day. And during the month of July, it's like, the happiest thing that I could do during the day is to check in the mailbox. There's a lot of just flooded with petitions mailed back. So we really, really appreciate it. And then at the end, with the help of people, and then also we hire the paid petitioners. So, and combined together, we ended up submitted 213,000 signatures to the Secretary of State. So way over the top. We knew that our goal was 170,000 signatures. And then in the end, we at the beginning, we were not that convinced that, volunteers, we didn't know, because volunteers, you cannot command volunteers, hey, you go collect signatures. So, and then we actually asked the petition company, set their goal to be 170,000 signatures. And then, guess what? Because of volunteers, we ended up like more than over-delivered 40,000 signatures. That actually, that's a basically safety net for us. When we submitted the first batch of 170,000 signatures on July 24th to the Secretary of State's office, the governor's office immediately released a statement saying, well, we will check the validity of the signatures, and then blah, 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 implying that they are going to do something like a maneuver, to disqualify them. Not knowing that we have additional 40,000 signatures to submit 3 days later. So, so definitely that outstanding number just to convince the other side, say, don't even want to try it. So we really want to thank every one of you that supported our initiative, signature collection, and then some of you donated. Thank you. And this time, on the second stage, we still want everybody's help. We want to get the message out. We want people to know that they need to reject referendum 88. And lots of people, they might confused, they might read the language. The language could be very misleading if you actually read the language. It says that the measure is to allow the state to remedy discrimination and then implement affirmative action, and then as long as the preferential treatment is not solely based on one of those following factors like race, gender, color. Remember the sole factor. So that's basically voided the current law. The current law says the government is not allowed to give a preferential treatment based on any of the following factors. The current law didn't say sole factor. So by stating the sole factor, the Initiative 1000 reversed current Washington Civil Rights Act, which is also called the Initiative 200 that people passed in 1990. So I'm here to urge you to remember, spread the word out to your friends and families, call your friends and family to let them know that in November, remember to reject Referendum 88. Referendum 88 is also called Initiative 1000. They're one the same. So remember, at the bottom it will say, which it will mention, the ballot title will mention Initiative 1000. But for people, if you don't look details, the Referendum Measure 88 is on the top of the ballot. So people need to remember to reject it. Thank you. Can we open for questions?
I'm puzzled, to say the very least. If we're stopping, what's going to be on the ballot? Maybe that's, I'll get back to this. What's going to be on the ballot? Is it going to be Initiative 1000?
Yes. It's effectively Initiative 1000. The ballot title and summary printed on the ballot, other than the title, on the top you will see Referendum Measure 88. And then underneath it will say this is the legislature passed Initiative 1000, which allowed the government to remedy discrimination, re-implementing affirmative action, as long as not implementing quota system, and which is very misleading. And then I want to emphasize, Initiative 1000 is full of lies. And then, in fact, I myself, as a voter pamphlet committee member of Referendum 88, opposing a Referendum 88 side, we got sued by the other side because our rebuttal mentioned Referendum 88 is about a quota, it's going to implement quota system. And the other side was so angry, because that basically pointed out, that's pointing to the heart of their lie. They were so desperate. I think it's 2 weeks ago, last week, 2 weeks ago, they sued me along with 5 other voter pamphlet committee members for having our name on the voter pamphlet. And yeah, and then obviously the court actually rejected their motion. So, and then what's funny about that is they waited 10 days maximum amount of time. The voter pamphlet, the rebuttal, we submitted our rebuttal August 21st. So they actually timed it, waited until the day after Labor Day, that's about 10 business days. And then the last minute, they filed a lawsuit personally against all 6 of us. And guess what? They mailed to us, I only got the mail Wednesday, the next day, like September 3rd, like 2 days after Labor Day. And then I happened to be, happily checking my mailbox, the same mailbox that I was getting the signatures. Wow, it's like a lawsuit. It's a notice. That was already in the afternoon on Wednesday. And then when I opened up, the court day is Friday. Yeah, so, and then we were scrambled to try to find, how to find people who represent us, right? And then guess what? Further notice is, and then luckily we contacted the Secretary of State's office. Luckily, the Secretary of State was also the nominal party of the lawsuit. And then we contacted, then we got back from Secretary of State, not knowing that there's another court date the next day, the Thursday. So we were saying, it's less than I would say 18 hours of notice. So we were scrambled, and we were trying to contact lawyers. I mean, law firms do not even accept, because, they want to understand what's going on. Luckily, we have 2 lawyers in our committee members. And so one of them represented herself, because herself got sued. And then all of us just asked her to, we were concurring, and we were same with you. And luckily, we came to court the next day. Another surprise. When we arrived at court, the lawyer from the other side protested, "Why did you show up?" And we were named on your lawsuit. Guess what? The reason he is rejecting us is that hearing was not the original Friday hearing moved to Thursday. It was yet another hearing they scheduled without notifying us. It was an injunction against the printing of the photo pamphlet. So, yes. And then luckily we got the notice from Secretary of State. To tell you the truth, probably Secretary of State's office, they didn't know that the Thursday party is only meant for the Secretary of State's office, because the injunction is against Secretary of State's office from printing the photo pamphlet. And then we were kind of jammed the party, right? Because our original court date was Friday. We thought the court date moved to Thursday. And then we just arrived. And sure enough, our lawyer, she's very smart, brilliant. And then after rendering the merit side, because she was preparing for the merit side. And then later on, halfway, the judge, probably notified her, hey, this is an injunction against but guess what? Since she already delivered the merit part of the underlying case, the judge denied the motion of the injunction. And then the other side, the lawyers protested, hey, how about the Friday's hearing? The judge told him, he decided, no way, you can make another motion to sue again or whatever. And by the way, you need to have 6 business days of notice to the other party. So basically we were ambushed by the other side. And the sole purpose of doing that is either randomize our campaign, because our campaign was we were ready to prepare the next stage of campaign. We want to send out messages. They basically, just wasted a couple of days of time. A lot of people, our energy. And then sure enough, the next day, Friday, we had a press conference in Seattle. So we invited the media to come, see how dirty trick the other side was playing against us. Simply, they did not want people to see the truth. They want to deny our rebuttal chance to be printed on the voter pamphlet. So the practice they were doing is just like the Initiative 1000 itself. It's full of lies. Initiative 1000 is about the voter, is about the big government, It's about unlimited government, allowing the government bureaucracy to grow. And it's about treating people differently based on different color. So that's wrong. And on top of that, it actually eliminated veterans' preference by adding the veteran status into the list of race, color, and etc. That's totally wrong, because veteran status is not something you were born with. And that's something that you earned with your sweat and blood. And that is totally different from race and color. So by putting them all together, veterans together, they are literally denying the veterans' preference benefit, which is clearly written in current Washington law. So it's basically full of lies, remember. Yeah, just like those Initiative 1,000 people. Oh, on top of that, they actually, recently, there's an article, I think it's the Everett Herald, they hired the Citizen Solutions to collect the Initiative 1,000 signatures. They ended up not paying the workers. They owed the workers for $1.3 million. And then those workers were primarily veterans and minorities. Yes. And then for these people to claiming having the virtues of protecting minority veterans and not paying their workers, minority and veterans, this tells us what kind of people is behind Initiative 1,000 and what full of lies Initiative 1,000 is. So remember, Referendum 88 is the same as Initiative 1,000. It's just a vehicle for us to revive it back to voter. Thank you. Next question.
On your handout, your last item there is I-1000 would establish a large government-appointed bureaucracy. And I've heard a little bit about this, and can you imagine, I imagine the governor would appoint his buddies to this large bureaucracy that then sends out all these quotas. Is that the way you see it?
Yes, yeah. In fact, this actually, in fact, this is just one sentence, but if you actually read the text of Initiative 1,000, it actually has a full section committed to the appointment of governor-appointed commission. It's basically a new bureaucracy. It's just going to have an overreaching right to reaching out to all branches of the government, all levels, and then that bureaucracy would have the final say on what constitutes the preferential treatment and what constitutes the underrepresented, quote-unquote, underrepresentation, and then what constitutes the disparity, what they call the disparity, and then how the government should remedy the disparity, and what the procedure is, and what the timetable is, what the criteria is, and then it's all out written there in the Initiative 1,000. It's very detailed. It's basically a blank check to the government. It's just to the executive government, executive branch of the government. Versus current law is very simple. There's a little maneuver room for the government to treat people differently, right? But this Initiative 1,000 is a blank check for the executive branch to set up all kinds of different rules based on different people. Yeah. So, and on top of that, that means huge government spending. you got to pay the bureaucrats, right? And let the bureaucrats to intrude your individual rights. Yes.
Other questions? Other questions?
The title is going to be called the Referendum Measure 88.
This thing's going to start
Yes.
walking soon, isn't it?
Referendum Measure 88 is going to be on the title, and then in the content it will say, in the summary it will say, the legislature passed Initiative 1000, which is blah blah blah, remedying,
That's fine, but this
and then implementing affirmative action as long as not implementing quota system, which as misleading as it is, it's just full of lies. We wanted people to know the truth. Yes. It will be it will be rejected or approved. Yeah, we want to vote on rejected on referendum 80. So effectively vote no. But we try to be very specific. We don't even want to say no, but we want to say rejected.
change the wording
Yeah.
and make it say
Reject
the
88.
other way around.
So our website is very simple. Our campaign used to be letpeoplevote.org. In the new phase of the campaign, our new website is called reject88.com. Yeah, so very simple, reject88.
John,
Yes.
you have a very interesting history as a university student. Could you briefly tell us about your time in the University of Beijing?
Oh, okay. Thank you for asking. I was second year in college. I went to college in 1987, so you can tell how old I am. I was born in 1969. I find this very interesting. Like all the years ending with 9 has a lot of significance to myself. Yeah. So this year is 2019, and I'm sponsoring the referendum 88 and then telling people to reject it. So I was born in 1969, and then the People's Republic was founded in 1949. So it was 20 years older than me, the People's Republic. And then in 1959, there was a big famine. It's like a giant leap forward movement, all the collectivism implementation, and which generated huge disaster, like millions of people just starved to death in 1959. Yeah. So it was called officially famine, but it's just man-made disaster. And I was born then 10 years later, 1969. And then 10 years later, 1979, that's when China actually reopened the door to the outside for the so-called economic reform. It's not that the government was embracing the free market. It's just it has to do it. It had to do it because otherwise the country was at the brink of economic disaster. And then 10 years later, 1989, I was second year in college. So that's when I was part of literally in Beijing. There's lots of universities. There's a section of the city. It's called the University District. It's just like dozens of universities, maybe even 100. So there's more than probably 200,000 students, college students. So as a college student, 19, 20-year-old, we always have, very, very ideal view of how the society should be. And then, but in the meantime, the reality was not. So, and then it just happened to be like in the mid-April of 1989, one of the very prominent politicians died, and then he happened to be viewed as very sympathetic to the democracy, to students. I mean, back then it was 89 is interesting because the economic reform started 10 years ago, right? And then, so immediately you see a lot of freedom, economic freedom, and come with a lot of demand for political freedom. So people would want to have more freedom of voices, and then people would post, you know, like messages on some board, you know, back literally on the wall, you know, not Facebook, but the actual wall. So back then, yeah, that's the environment. Back in 1980s, it was relatively kind of like a free period of time until the government started to crack down. They think this will be out of control. Yeah. And then sure enough, the more crackdown, the more people resent the way the government reacted. And then the event started in April, and then rolled all the way in May, and then the number of people involved just snowballed into like at the peak time, it was like probably a million people were marching in Tiananmen Square. So yeah, it was big. It's like yeah, and then all this situation was obviously the government wants to crack down and then declare the martial law in the city, and then the army was trying to stabilize all the different important installations in the city. And then, yeah, it's just unfortunately like in early June, they decided to clear the square. And that's when, you know, what shit happened. Yeah. And then I was one of the university students there. And then, yeah, at some point of time, you were desperate to run for your life. Yeah, and I was lucky enough. I was just like waking up the next day and noticed already the bloody clothes and bodies, some wounded students. Yeah, and then my first reaction was, I need to tell my parents that I'm still alive, because my hometown is like 1,000 miles away to the south of China. And then back then, there was no communication. That day, there was no telephone communication, nothing. Just everything outside just sealed. The only thing that happened to be working is telegram. And that was a Sunday. Typically, the postal office, doing the telegram, they would be closed, right? Luckily, the workers there, they opened the telegram off, the postal office open. So, and then when I went there was a long lines of students lined up there. They were all on the same page. They were sending to their loved ones the telegrams that I'm still alive. So, yeah. So, and then only 3 days later, I got first phone call conversation with my parents. So that's, yeah. But my parents told me that telegram meant a lot to them, because that they can say for sure that their son is still alive. Yeah. So otherwise they could not. You know, it was 3 days of ordeal before my dad was able to call me. Yeah. So, and then obviously after that, students try to escape. For me, I just like grab a train, try to go to a train station. Back then, actually, lots of people, ordinary people, even in the railroad system, they actually, when they see students, they actually welcome you. They try to save you. Like I didn't get, I'm in a hurry, you don't have a train ticket. No problem. You get on the train, and then the train is southbound. Yeah, it was fascinating. It's like it took me a few days to get back home. It was 1,000 miles away. And then, sure enough, we got a letter 2 months later in August, telling my parents there was an unrest, like counter-revolutionary event happened in Beijing, and if your son, your child, was involved, and then he needs to tell all the whole story, basically tell everything. So yeah, sure enough, in September, along with others, we went back to school. The first thing we had to do is we need to do a brain dump. It's like, what did you do during those months, like from April to June? So yeah, obviously some people got punished. So some student leader had a jail time, and some escaped with help of